Hi, this is Sheena from Bescene, and today we have a very interesting guest. Not only is Dick Hogue my dad, but Dick is also in a full-time job, and he has now decided to start what some people would call a side hustle. He's got a hobby, he's started a blog, and he's very passionate about a topic, and his blog is called Jobs for Humans. So, Dick, why don't you tell us a little bit about Jobs for Humans?
Well, let me start with the beginning. How did I get into this? It all started with a 2013 Oxford University study that projected that 47% of all U.S. jobs would be lost to the computer in 20 years. And I thought to myself, 47% of all U.S. jobs, that is a lot of jobs. Automated jobs have already been replaced with relatively simple robots. And what I think is interesting is when you get into this field, the question always comes up, can such and such a job be replaced by the computer? There was a 2004 study that concluded that any job that involved driving a vehicle was secure because driving was so complicated that it was no way that that could ever be programmed to be run by a computer. That was 2004. Fast forward just 6 years to 2010, Google announced that it had automated several Toyota Priuses. So that was amazing. So much for driving a vehicle being a secure job. That study, that Oxford University study, should have been a wake-up call for everybody. It certainly was for me. And that's what motivated me to start this blog, jobsforhumans.org.
So you mentioned that uh, jobs is computers is picking up steam for jobs, and we obviously see drones now being delivered. When I walked through the international terminal, computers were taking the jobs of where humans would ticket you and look at your passport. Where else do you see this example?
Well, this point about the computerization of jobs picking up steam is not only very, very important, but it's not a generally well understood point by the public. And there's two concepts at play here. One is Moore's Law, and the other is a concept that can best be explained by an ancient story related to the inventor of chess. First, on Moore's Law. Moore's Law is named after Gordon Moore, the co-founder of Intel. Moore wrote a paper back in 1965 projecting that computer power would double every 12 months. Well, history has shown that it has doubled closer to every 18 months, but it's still a phenomenal rate of increase on computer power. With regard to the ancient story, this is an illustration of what happens with an exponential function when you get further into the series. As the story goes, the inventor of chess took his invention to the country's emperor. And the emperor was so impressed with this new game, he said that he would give the inventor any reward, and the inventor could name the reward. Well, the inventor was very clever. He said, what I would like is a quantity of rice. And that quantity would be defined as follows. We're going to put 1 grain of rice on the first square, 2 grains of rice on the second square, 4 grains of rice on the third square, 8 grains of rice on the fourth square. We're going to double the amount of rice for each of the remaining 64 squares. Now, you get to the 64th square and you have an incredible quantity of rice, 2 to the 63rd power. But when you add all of the rice on all of these squares, you get an incredibly large quantity of rice. And the best way to see that is to string this rice together. And if we assume that each grain of rice is 2/10 of an inch long, what we have is a string of rice that's 60 trillion miles long. That's twice the distance to the nearest star, which is only 25 trillion miles away. This is a perfect illustration of what happens later in the series when you have an exponential function. And what we are in now is the second half of the chessboard. Now, I have to tell you that there have been several papers written pointing out that Moore's law cannot last indefinitely, and most people are speculating that it's going to start tapering off in the latter part of the 2020s. But realize when we get to 2029, we are at the 64th anniversary of Moore's law.
Right, right.
So this is just, it's an incredible example of what happens with an exponential series.
So Dick, you're saying the faster the internet and technology is speeding up, the quicker our jobs are going to disappear.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and we don't see it very much now, but as time goes on, that is going to become exponential.
It's picking up steam pretty rapidly.
Yeah,
yes.
And so what does that mean for the everyday person?
Well, I make 3 points on this. Even if the Oxford University study turns out to be wildly off the mark, they're projecting 47% of all U.S. jobs lost by 2033.
Wait, what was that percentage?
47%.
30%, okay.
Of all U.S. jobs being lost to the computer by 2033. Even if that projection turns out to be wildly off the mark, we are still looking at a lot of jobs lost over the relatively near future. That's point number 1. Point number 2 is I would ask everybody watching this video to consider the implications for our children and our grandchildren. Point number 3 is my reaction. I have to tell you that I am very worried about the future, but I'm also motivated, and that is perfectly explained by why we're doing this video.
Right.
I am motivated to try to get people to take this seriously and try to prepare for the future.
Right, right. And it's not uncommon to go into a Target and use a computer to purchase your goods and services, or go to the grocery store.
Right.
So all these jobs that used to be run by humans are now being run for computers.
Right.
So we see this. We're already seeing this.
We are.
And our younger population is already in a job crisis.
Yes. Yes.
So you talk about preparing for the future. How do people prepare for the future?
Well, education. Education is a solution to so many things, and it certainly is in this regard, but there's a big caveat here. You've got to have the right kind of education. Not all fields of education are created equally when it comes to preparing for the future. I have identified 4 areas which, in my opinion, this is simply my opinion, everybody can form their own opinion, but I've got 4 areas that I consider particularly important, and I call these core areas of education that I think are important. Number 1 is math. There is an ever-increasing need for scientists and engineers. What's interesting is that there are more scientists and engineers alive today than all the dead scientists and engineers going all the way back in time. There is really an ever-increasing need for scientists and engineers, and for this field, any of these fields, you need a strong math background. Now, there is something unique about math when compared with these other 3 areas that I'm going to be talking about. With math, you really need to get off on the right foot early in your educational career. It's not impossible to catch up later in life, but it's very, very difficult. With these other fields, you're never too old to improve upon your level of understanding. And let's take these other fields one at a time. Entrepreneurship. Australian entrepreneur Daniel Priestley wrote a book called Become a Key Person of Influence back in 2010, when Kevin Harrington, who is the inventor of the infomercial and one of the original sharks on the hit TV show Shark Tank, when he read that book, he said to himself, "That's exactly how I made all my money. That is my formula." Well, Harrington and Priestley collaborated, and they wrote this book, Key Person of Influence. And I would suggest to everybody, get a copy of this book if you don't already have one. Read it again, and start acting on these principles. They are that powerful. It will change your life. It certainly did mine.
I'll take credit to that one.
Yes,
I read it, and I sent it to my dad.
And Shana was the one that recommended this to me, and it really is a great book. Now, there's another point here on entrepreneurship that I think is important. You have to consider employees as entrepreneurs, because any good employee is always looking for a way to improve the way they do their job. And it's only going to be good employees that survive and prosper in the future. Mm-hmm. So I think you really need to take seriously entrepreneurship, and starting with this book would be a good way to get going. The next area of expertise that I would highly recommend is communication and leadership. Communication and leadership has always been important, but I think it's going to be even more important in the future. Warren Buffett has said that an employee, an executive, they can increase their earning capacity by as much as 50% with good communication skills. The Carnegie Institute of Technology came out with a study. They claim that 85% of an individual's earning capacity is attributable to communication skills. Only 15% is attributable to technical skills. And what's amazing about this study, this was published in 1918. There's nothing new about this. These ideas have been around for decades. Toastmasters International has been helping people improve their communication and leadership skills since 1924. So communication and leadership, definitely important. And the fourth area that I will mention is marketing. With fewer and fewer jobs available to an ever-increasing human workforce, we are all going to need strong marketing skills to sell our message. Marketing is going to have to include state-of-the-art technology, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. These are all platforms that have established their merit in the marketing area, and so we need to take these seriously. And we don't want to overlook video. This is your field, Sheena. Yeah. You have convinced me that there's no better way to personalize your message than with a video. Mm-hmm. And Cisco came out with a projection just last year that by 2020, 82% of all consumer video on the internet will be video, and so
all the traffic
will be from video, and so that's a very powerful statistic. Absolutely. As far as I'm concerned. Yeah. So,
and when you combine the elements of key person of influence and video and public speaking, you have quite a powerful opportunity for the future.
Yeah, you really do.
On that note of public speaking, you're a big advocate of Toastmasters. Right. Can we talk a little bit about how Toastmasters has helped you? And
there is a great book, Heart of a Toastmaster, by Cheryl Rausch. She surveyed Toastmasters all around the world, and she's got 145 stories on how Toastmasters has changed lives. And I would highly recommend that book. It's just a great testimony for the Toastmasters program.
Right, and that can help people with their communication skills. Right. And not only for their job, but if they're an entrepreneur or if they're doing video, there's all different areas of communication that people can...
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So Jobs for Humans.
Yes.
What else can we know about this?
Well, let me just summarize. I would say that the future is filled with both danger and opportunity. Danger if you happen to be in a job that's going to be replaced by a computer. Opportunity, incredible opportunity if you are prepared to be a leader in this new field ahead of us. And the future is going to be very exciting, but we definitely need to be prepared.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why you're doing your side hustle.
And that's why I'm doing jobsforhumans.org. That's right.
Well, I'm really, really proud of you, Dick, because not very many people take these important concepts into consideration, and it is important. So I'm very grateful to have this conversation with you, and thank you very much for your information.
Okay, thank you, Sheena.